Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to be here with you. Today, we'll be exploring the intriguing question, what do you love me for? This is the first slide of our journey, and I want to briefly share what we'll cover. We'll look into the reasons behind love and understanding what truly matters. So, let's dive in and discover more together. Today, I want to take us on a psychological exploration of unrequited love and how it connects to the idea of freeing ourselves through truth. Unrequited love, as many of us have experienced, is a deeply emotional and often painful state where our feelings are not reciprocated. It's a complex mix of hope, longing, and sometimes heartache. But what makes this topic so compelling is how it reveals our inner psychological landscape, our desires, vulnerabilities, and the ways we handle rejection and disappointment. By examining unrequited love from a psychological perspective, we can better understand ourselves and the patterns that emerge in these situations. Now, a key point here is the concept of liberation through truth. When we confront and accept the reality of our feelings and the situation, instead of avoiding or denying it, we begin to free ourselves from the emotional prison that unrequited love can create. This honesty, both with ourselves and others, is what ultimately leads to healing and growth. Throughout this presentation, I hope to show how embracing the truth about our experiences not only helps us move forward, but also empowers us to find authentic happiness. So, this slide sets the stage for understanding not just the pain of unrequited love, but also the potential for liberation that lies in facing our truths. Unrequited love is often considered one of the most exquisite, yet painful forms of human suffering. It's a paradox that can feel almost unbearable. On one hand, the person we desire feels incredibly close, so real, so visible, almost within our grasp. But on the other hand, they seem impossibly far away, out of reach no matter how much we wish they weren't. It creates this strange tension where we're caught between hope and despair. We tend to imagine that if only they returned our affection, everything in life would suddenly fall into place. We might believe that happiness, security, meaning, and emotional fulfillment would finally be ours. But this longing also reveals something deeper about human nature, the way we seek connection and validation. Throughout this presentation, we're exploring how these intense feelings shape our experiences and perceptions. Unrequited love isn't just about missing someone. It's a profound reflection of our desires for belonging and understanding. And understanding this paradox can help us navigate the pain and perhaps find insight into our own emotional journeys. But reality is never that simple. When we talk about unrequited love, it's tempting to see it as just a straightforward story of longing and disappointment. However, the truth is much more complex. This article delves into why unrequited love feels so intensely powerful, why it can take hold of us in such a profound way. It's because the feelings we have are often intertwined with our deepest desires for connection and acceptance. What's fascinating is that the very things that keep us stuck in these feelings, like hope, fantasy, and the idealization of the other person, are also what can ultimately set us free. They hold the key to understanding ourselves better and moving beyond the pain. So, as we explore this theme, remember that unrequited love isn't just about heartbreak. It's also about growth, self-discovery, and the possibility of liberation. This is a vital part of understanding human relationships and our emotional journeys. When we find ourselves falling for someone from afar, it's easy to think we're captivated by their beauty, intelligence, or personality. But in reality, what we're really holding onto is a kind of fantasy. This fantasy is built from limited interactions, from the bits and pieces we observe from a distance or in brief moments. We tend to fall in love with how they smile when they think no one's watching, or how kind they seem during those quick exchanges. We also project potential onto their life and character, imagining what they could become or how they could fit into our world. What's important to realize is that without getting to know someone deeply, we often convince ourselves they're exceptions to the rules that govern most human beings. We convince ourselves they're somehow above flaws and complexities, special, unique, almost perfect. And that's where the danger lies. We start thinking, they wouldn't hurt me, or they wouldn't misunderstand me, or they wouldn't disappoint me. But the truth is, they're human just like all of us. They have flaws, misunderstandings, and imperfections. And that's an important reminder that idealization, while natural, can blind us to reality and set us up for disappointment. When we talk about the truth we often avoid, it's that everyone is difficult up close. And I want to emphasize this is not an insult, it's a universal reality. People are challenging. When you're close to someone, you start to see all their quirks and flaws. We all at times can be irritable, emotionally unpredictable, fragile, or defensive. Sometimes we're jealous, stubborn, or insensitive, and often we're confusingly inconsistent. In a healthy, reciprocated relationship, love actually matures through this kind of intimate exposure to each other's imperfections. It's through seeing those flaws that we learn to love someone despite them, and ideally, they do the same with ours. That's the real process of building deep, genuine connection. But with unrequited love, things look very different. Because we don't get close enough, perhaps out of fear or hope, our idealized image of the person remains perfect and untouched. This idealization holds a lot of power, but it's also dangerous. It prevents us from truly seeing the person as they are, which can lead to disappointment and a distorted view of reality. So the key takeaway is that proximity reveals the truth. Everyone is complex and flawed. And understanding this helps us see love and relationships more honestly, whether they're reciprocal or not. Why does unrequited love tend to last so long? Well, the key reason is that the agony persists not because the beloved is somehow extraordinary, but because they are ultimately unknowable. We can't grow tired of them or get annoyed with them in the way we might with someone we truly know. We don't see their little imperfections or the tensions that naturally develop in real relationships. This leads us to a paradox. It's not their perfection that keeps us longing, it's our ignorance of their true humanity. When we idealize someone, they become more of a symbol than a real person. They represent something deeper, a cure for loneliness, a path to emotional redemption, or even a fantasy where nothing ever goes wrong. But the thing is, real people, once truly known, tend to disappoint us in ways that help us grow emotionally. These disappointments are necessary for our development. On the other hand, imaginary or idealized people, those we keep in our minds, only disappoint us because they never become real. They remain a fantasy, and that's what makes unrequited love so persistent and difficult to let go of. When we talk about healing and humanizing the ideal, it's important to understand that we don't need to stop thinking about the person we love. Instead, we need to start thinking about them more realistically. This means asking ourselves some honest questions. For instance, how might they frustrate me over time? Everyone has their quirks and flaws that could become a source of irritation. What insecurities might they be hiding? Recognizing that no one is perfect helps us see them as a whole person, not just an ideal. Which habits of theirs could eventually drive me mad? Small habits, over time, can become significant sources of frustration. And how might they misunderstand or judge me? Understanding that miscommunications happen and that judgments can be unfair reminds us of our shared human vulnerability. The key point here is that we don't need to know every tiny detail to realize the truth. They would eventually irritate us, because everyone does. And recognizing this isn't a sign of cynicism, it's actually freeing. It allows us to see love and connection more clearly, without idealization, and helps us build more genuine relationships. The most painful truth about unrequited love isn't simply that the other person doesn't feel the same way. It's deeper than that. It's that we are haunted by someone who has never had the chance to truly disappoint us. Our longing for them remains pure, untouched by the messy realities of life. It's a kind of idealized love that exists only in our minds. But here's the hopeful part. When we accept their humanity, when we start imagining their flaws instead of revering their perfection, we give ourselves permission to breathe again. We stop clinging to an illusion and start seeing things more clearly. What we're really losing isn't a soulmate. We're letting go of a fiction, an ideal that was never meant to be real in the first place. And in doing that, we open ourselves up to genuine connection and healing. That's the real hope in facing this painful truth. So here's the key takeaway. love truly requires knowledge. One of the most mature lessons we can learn about love is that you can't genuinely love someone if you don't really know who they are. It's tempting to get lost in idealized images or fantasies, especially when unrequited love feels so irresistible. But the thing is, that perfection we see in those fantasies is actually what causes the downfall. Because real love begins when we let go of that illusion and start making space for the real person, with all their imperfections. Healing happens the moment we stop craving that perfect fantasy and instead open ourselves to the actual person in front of us, someone who can share their real life with us. Not someone who will never disappoint us, but someone who will, because nobody's perfect. And that's okay, because true love involves choosing to accept and love someone despite their flaws. So, in the context of everything we've discussed, remember that genuine love is rooted in understanding and acceptance. It's about making that conscious decision to embrace reality, imperfections and all, rather than chasing an impossible ideal.